Namaste. Today, I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about how best to balance Kapha Dosha in terms of our lifestyle, in terms of the yoga practices that we do, and in terms of the things that we ingest into our bodies. Now, Kapha Dosha is characterized by the most dense of the five elements, earth and water. Because of this, when our Kapha is in good balance, we are characterized by stability, strength. Now, when that gets out of balance, it's characterized by stagnation, lack of motivation. And so because of that, it's really important not to let it get out of balance, because once it does, it becomes very difficult to get it back into balance because we're in this stagnant, unmotivated space. We're less inclined to do the work to rebalance. So keeping the Kapha dosha in balance to begin with is really key to good health. And I think during the pandemic, especially, a lot of us got out of balance in our Kapha dosha, not really through any fault of our own. We had to stay stuck in a single place. We didn't have enough stimulation to take us out of this imbalance. And so we started to feel stuck. A lot of people gained weight. And even in terms of like our mental stagnation, we became very stuck to our own ideas, had a hard time feeling like we could change our minds about things and seeing other people's perspectives. We were kind of stuck in our own mental patterns. So how best to balance this? Well, through our lifestyle, we want to mix things up as much as possible for Kapha. It's kind of the opposite of what we want to do to balance Vata dosha. Vata dosha, we want more routine. Kapha dosha, we want more stimulation, more things differently. And this can be anything. Just challenge yourself to every day find something that's new that takes you out of your habits, out of your comfort zone to a degree. It can be something as simple as brushing your teeth with your less dominant hand. When we're brushing our teeth normally, we're thinking about everything except brushing our teeth, right? But if you do this with the opposite hand, all of a sudden you kind of have to be really conscious about what you're doing to make it not feel really awkward. And just doing something as simple as that small change can really just fire up different neurons in the brain and get you active and continuing to be motivated in your life. Avoid, if possible, sleeping in. So one of the laws of physics states that objects in motion tend to stay in motion, and objects at rest tend to stay at rest. And this is like almost speaking directly to Kapha dosha. When a Kapha person is engaged and motivated, they have a lot of stamina. So they're going to stay up as long as they're happy and engaged and doing things. They're going to want to stay awake. But at the same time, when they're in bed and warm and comfortable and cozy, they're kind of going to stay warm and comfortable and cozy, especially if they stayed up late the night before doing something that they were enjoying. So that's the danger for Kapha, is to stay up super late and then wake up later, and then that kind of starts to snowball in the lifestyle. In terms of yoga practice, wow, the world is your oyster for Kapha. You can do so many fun, interesting, engaging things. The key thing for Kapha is to get onto your mat and do it. There's that danger we just talked about of wanting to stay in bed, sleep in, not do a morning practice. Do your best to get on the mat, because once you get on the mat, everything you do is going to be beneficial, almost without exception, for Kapha. Anything that's active, anything that's dynamic, any movement, it's all going to be really great for Kapha. Headstands or any kind of inversions and arm balances are so good for Kapha. If you see a Kapha person, generally speaking, they'll have a very muscular lower body and a less developed upper body. And so arm balances, inversions kind of get gravity working in a different way, getting the upper body muscles engaged to kind of counteract that. And active breath is so good for Kapha. Mucus, lungs, these are problem areas for Kapha, and active breath will get that moving. And also just gives Kapha the energy That's the spark of energy, I should say, that it needs. Again, they have good energy. They just kind of need to fire it up. And once it's fired up, then they have the best stamina of any dosha. And the active breathing, so good. So anything with an active inhale, active exhale, bellows breath, breath of fire, all that's good. Kapalabhati is good for detoxification as well. All that's great for kapha. Now, in terms of the food, that's less good news for kapha, unfortunately. The main tastes for a Western diet, sweet and salty, they're both aggravating for kapha. And even sour foods, oily foods, those aren't good either. Kapha is already oily enough. It doesn't need more oil. So this is like all the food that's out there too, right? And additionally, because we want to avoid stagnation, we also want to avoid food that's been sitting out. So not eating leftovers, avoiding canned foods, packaged foods, processed foods, all those things that have been sitting. When we take those in, then that encourages that kind of lethargy, that depressiveness that we want to avoid with kapha as well. So try as best as you can to eat more fresh foods, freshly prepared foods, lighter foods. And the taste that you want to favor, you can do spicy foods that'll kind of get you, get that spark that we were talking about. Also astringent foods, that means kind of like drying to counteract the mucus and the water element. And then bitter foods are good as well. The good news is that among all the doshas, coffee is the most balancing for kapha dosha. It's the bitter taste we just talked about is good for kapha dosha. It's warm, that's good for kapha dosha. It's stimulating, that's very good for kapha dosha. The only thing that really gets in the way is that we mentioned that sweet taste is not good for kapha dosha. And most people take their coffee with some kind of sugar or caramel or syrup or other kinds of additives that then make it sweet and then make it less balancing for kapha. So just be mindful of that. Coffee, black coffee, really good for kapha dosha. You start to add dairy, that's aggravating for kapha as well. Start to add sugar, that's aggravating for kapha. So just coffee in its plain state is pretty good for kapha. That helps to keep them warm, keep them motivated, keep them stimulated. And that's really the thing for kapha. It's a very strong dosha to have, but it just needs that spark. Like once you kind of get the ball rolling, then it kind of rolls downhill and it's really strong. So that's what we're trying to do for kapha. And we don't want to let the boulder, whatever we're using in our kind of mixed metaphor here, you don't want it to stand still because then it takes a lot of effort to push it again to get it going. So keeping it rolling nice and steady, mixing things up, changing the course a little bit here and there, but trying not to be stuck in a rut or stagnant in the same spot. And then your kapha dosha will be nice and balanced. Thank you for listening. Best of health to you.